very, very special guest and the Indigi program, guys. The way we not Jordan. So hot, you guys. I'm so excited. As always, you're with me, your host, Cass, of Fact Checker. But we're not alone. Today, Fact Checker has collaborated with Kayesa Creative Center all the way from Chinji, you guys, so that we can talk about music and copyright. Lero tukukambira na za understanding and unpacking copyright. Kwani copyright ndikanyama kanji? And why is it important? How does it benefit musicians especially? And speaking of musicians, guys, I have superstars in the audience with me today. Joining us today, we've got the veteran, the jazz wonderkind, the genius, Eric Baliani. Please wave to the audience.
Thank you very much.
And we have Mr. I am from Malawi himself, KBG, the 265 creative hustler. KBG, thank you so much for coming. Please wave to our audience.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yes, and little society little castle physically. We have got a hot panel joining us via Zoom as well. We have with us Madalo Banda, who is going to be joining us very soon. Madalo Banda is an IP lawyer akupunzira ku University of Cape Town ndithu akupunzira za intellectual property law. It's called IP law. So she's going to be explaining to us a little bit on what copyright is about. Komaso tilindi muntu wankulu wakukosoma Lightwell K. Benjamin amene atakhale nafeso kuti he should explain to us what is Kosoma and what does Kosoma do and what does Kosoma have to offer. And we also have with us all the way from South Africa, you guys, Zwei Bala. Thank you so much for joining us, you guys. Zwei is an amazing music icon. In the Southern African region, musanigimu zimakhala bwanji zankhani ya copyright kapena ownership of musical and intellectual property. So guys, thank you so much. Can we have everyone via Zoom just wave to the audience so we can all see you? Hi guys. Perfect. All right, so let's get this started. Are you ready? I'm ready. You guys ready?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Perfect. Again, guys, Samodo, it's a creative discussion. Make sure you text in via Facebook. We want to hear your questions, guys. Text your questions in on Fact Checker Malawi. We are live via Facebook, or if you've got the Zoom link, text us via Zoom. We want to hear what you have to say. Let's start with Mr. Lightwell K. Benjamin. Bwana wanga, ifeyo tu tukufuna tidziwe kuti kosoma ndichani, komanso copyright ndichani. Ndetiyambe pamene popo. What exactly is copyright? All right, Lightwell, you're on. If you could unmute your mic. Oh, I think we've lost him there. No worries. Lightwell will join us soon, but let's continue the discussion. Ndeti ambendi anthu amene ndili nawo in studio because these guys are artists. Munatimvere kwa iwo, actually that's even better. Before the lawyer and before anthu official kosoma, asanapereke input yawo. Let's hear from the artists themselves. How do we understand copyright? So let's start with KBG. KBG, you are a young musician. You're very youthful, but you've also been in the game for a while, and you've tapped into different sort of genres of music. And I know you've been very passionate and interested about copyright.
Yeah.
So tell us, how do you think young musicians these days understand copyright?
Okay, basically, I think I'm going to just talk about how I understand it in simple terms to also people who are watching online that don't really understand what copyright is. For me, it is basically like a way of making sure that you get your money back from the art that you create. And this is not just something that we as artists can do by ourselves. We work with institutions like Kosoma in this case, where we take our art and we register it with them, and then they are the ones responsible for collecting revenue from the art that we create. And that is when we distribute our songs from radio stations, TV stations. So whenever we play, or whenever the radio stations, and even online, when these places play our music, Kosoma is liable, or it's mandated to collect that revenue. So for me, that is copyright. You're making sure that your art is registered by yourself, and you own the rights to that song, and then when it's played, you're supposed to be paid back. Yeah, something like that.
All right. So let's stick with you, KBG. As an artist, are you making money?
Yes and no.
Talk to us.
Okay, I would say we could have been able to make more money if we had systems that really favor us as artists. I feel like right now, as we stand, it's the 21st century, and Malawi is like we're way behind when it comes to these things. So yeah, I would say we could have been making more money, but right now we're getting there, but it's not as as good as it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so this is KBG coming at us from Minnesota Career in 2021 for a young artist. Mr. Baliani, Eric Baliani, you have been in the game for a while and you have led the path for so many musicians, young musicians just like me. Inu mwina muti basenzeru zanu kuti mmene mwakhalira mu industry, quote unquote music industry ku Malawi kunoko. What's been your experience?
I think first of all is to remember why, in my view, why the discussion of copyright began in Malawi. And I think one thing that people need to understand is that music was in Malawi before copyright law was there. So the copyright or the discussion around copyright specifically came to ensure that we sort out the lives of the current musicians of that time. There was a lot of music that was being dubbed, music like from Saleda Pidi, Makasu, MBC Band. You know, you could just go in Limbi and you could buy it. So the discussion on the ground was like, is there a way whereby musicians could make money like how everyone in the world makes money through what they write? So that's why, in my view, we were so excited when the Copyright Society was being, or the copyright discussion was coming. We were very excited. It was like, yeah, now we're going to make money. So we go now in 2021, musicians are not making money, and I'm going to lie about it. Something with our Copyright Society, copyright is not right today. I mean, as we go on with this discussion, sometimes I feel like we kill Kosoma too much, because Copyright Society of Malawi is in charge of the artists' rights, writers,
Because there are a lot of people.
In my view, I think it would be nice if we had a direct musician rights organization of Malawi, because the issue, and all the industries are growing, we are growing, there's urban music, jazz is growing, hip hop is growing, and then you have writers. I saw another friend of mine who released a book.
Movies are coming out.
Movies are coming out,
Yeah.
So there's so much discussion that I don't think sometimes one organization currently can handle all that, especially when they're also failing to deal with music alone. So so in a nutshell, no. Musicians are not benefiting as much as, not even as much. Very few people are benefiting. Thousands of Malawian musicians don't even know that their music that they write
Can be copyrighted. People don't know that stuff.
So that's my view.
Yeah. Now, guys, thank you so much. I think these two amazing musicians, when it comes to copyright, not only do a lot of musicians not understand the process or understand how to enjoy their copyright, kapena swoimba mbili sitimadziwa kuti copyright ndi chinthu chathu ifeyo, kuti as long as tikapanga create chinthu, when we create a song, when we create a piece of work, it's also our copyright. And our musicians also anena kuti but zinthu zosiyana zimene timapanga nazo interact when we are creating a piece of work. It's not just the song itself, like you said, it's the idea, it's the streaming platform, it's distribution, but zinthu zambiri mbili ndithu. Komano ineyo ndisanayankhule ngati munthu wodziwa zambiri chifukwa I don't know much, but luckily we've got so many amazing people who do, and they're joining us today. Finally, Madalo Banda, our IP expert, is here. Madalo, please say hi to everyone. Thank you so much for coming in.
Hello. I hope everybody is able to hear me.
Hi, Madalo. Could you speak up a bit? You sound a bit muted.
I don't know. I'm trying to speak as loud as I can. I hope you're able to all hear me.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Yes.
All right.
Yes, my name is Madalo Banda. I am a lawyer, specifically specializing in intellectual property law, which includes copyright, trademarks, patents, and that kind of stuff. I am currently also undergoing my master's degree in intellectual property law. So
Awesome.
that's where I am.
Awesome.
Yes.
So Madalo, take us through it. Before you joined in, Eric and KBG were just talking about how artists understand copyright in Malawi, and tinafusa kuti are artists benefiting from the copyright structures in Malawi. And zikuoneka zoti penapake benefit ilipo, but we have a long way to go. So maybe before we go too far and start getting a little intellectual in the discussion, mwina utitambasulire kuti when we say copyright, exactly what it, ndichani kwenikweni, ndizinthu zingati kapena copyright yo ndichinyama.
Yes.
Go for it.
All right. Copyright is not a very complicated concept. A copyright or copyrights are basically a bundle of rights that creators of work have towards their work. So let's say the right to sell your work, that's part of copyright. The right to make copies of your work, that's part of your copyright. The right to be known as an author of your work, that's part of copyright. So it's just a bundle of rights that an author of the work has towards the work. Now, how the system operates in Malawi, all artists need to know. Whether you're a musician, a writer, a movie maker, whatever type of artist that you are, you don't need to register your copyright for you to have rights in your work. So as soon as you create a work, automatically you're vested with copyright. You don't have to go anywhere, you don't have to pay anyone for anything. By virtue of creation alone, you have copyright in your work. Now, copyright subsists for quite a long time. So you might wonder, okay, how long can I exploit my work? For how long can I benefit or keep making money from your work? So as soon as you create a work, let's say you've created a song and you've released it, the duration of the copyright is for your entire life, plus 50 years after your death.
Whoa.
So it means, yes, so your copyright, let's say you've created a song, you can exploit that for the rest of your life. And when you die, your children or whoever is going to inherit from you can also continue to benefit from you. I know you've probably heard of Michael Jackson and all these artists who passed away, but that doesn't mean that anyone can just use their music because it's still copyrighted. So their children and their children's children are still benefiting from works that they created years and years and years ago. So after that 50 years, after the life of the author plus 50 years, then the work enters what we call the public domain, which means that anyone can now use it, anyone has free access to use of that work. I'm sure you've heard of very, very old music. That is no longer.
Sorry, Manala, we just lost you for a bit there.
Copyright protection. So, I was saying that I'm sure you've heard of very, very old music, like opera music, classical music. Anyone can make recordings of that. It doesn't belong to anyone anymore. Books such as Cinderella, White. Those are books that are in the public domain because the copyright on those works has expired. If you, Cass, decided to make a Cinderella movie, technically no one can stop you because that's part of the public domain. So that only happens after copyright expires. Now, what are your copyrights specifically? What rights do you have as an artist? Number one, you have rights to exploit your work commercially. So let's say if you make a song, I don't have the right to make copies of that song and sell that song. I will be violating your copyright. The only person who is allowed to derive financial benefit is you. You are the only one who's allowed to derive financial benefit from that work, unless you give me a license that, okay, you can make copies of the song. Number two, if the artist is the only one who is allowed to make copies of that work, with one small exception, but otherwise you can't just start making copies of people's work, downloading them illegally, and then giving them to people. That is actually a copyright violation. So the only exception to that is, for example, I buy your song, right? I buy your song and I put it in my phone. I am legally allowed to make one copy for personal private use. Let's say I copy that song to my laptop. That type of copying is, I'm allowed to do that, but as long as it's very limited to a personal copy for myself. I'm not allowed to make a copy and give it to somebody else. That will also be a violation of your copyright. So basically what copyright wants to do is to maximize how much financial benefit an artist can make from their work. Now, the problem with monetizing copyright, it's not specifically that the law doesn't protect you, because the law is actually, it protects you very well. The problem now comes with implementation of how you can protect your copyright, because we all know that of the internet, with the coming in of all these digital platforms, it's so much easier to make illegal of something. So that's not technically a legal issue. That's more of an enforcement and a technological issue. So the law does allow for what we call technological protection measures. Let's say there's some software that will, if you encrypt your song, your digital file, in such a way that you can't make a copy of it. I'm not really that technically knowledgeable, but I know that there is some technology that makes it, let's say, perhaps impossible for you to make a copy of a work in a certain way, or to make it easier to track copies of your work in other ways. So I think the problem comes to enforcement rather than legal protection. But artists should know they can't take people to court for violating their copyright. So let's say your song has been uploaded to YouTube, for example, without your permission. You are actually allowed to send YouTube a takedown notice and say that this is my copyright, this is my song, I want it taken down from your platform. And they will have to abide by it, and they will have to oblige and take it down. If there's any platform that is hosting your music or your works illegally, you can send them a takedown notice for them to take it down. And if they refuse to take it down, then they become now liable for that copyright infringement, because they have received notice that this thing is illegal, and they're continuing to host that illegal material. So you then have force to take them to court. If you have knowledge that there's large-scale copying of your work by a certain individual, you also have the right to take them to court and to get remedies from there.
Yeah. No, Madalo, thank you so much. I think my photo was too much true. Nana somonga waimba zintuzina. Things have been opened and to me that I didn't even know. Like, I didn't know that my children, and if my child has a child at 20 years old, then it means my children's children can be able to benefit from my copyright. And zango imba mwana bunch.
Well, yeah, I think I knew some of the things, but I think for us in Malawi, information like this is is not accessible. People don't know these things. We had an event back in the days which was sponsored by British Council. It was about the same things, copyright, and it was sad to hear that, like, most of these 17-year-old artists that are performing or doing music right now, they don't know about these things. They don't know that they can copyright their stuff. They don't know that when by the fact that their song is playing on radio, it's copyrighted. People don't know these things. So maybe if we have more of these things, maybe discussions, maybe it will open up and strike the right codes on who to really make the changes.
Yeah, definitely on that. And actually, Madalo, while we still have you, let's just continue on what you just said. Good and truly, we really don't know, and we don't know where to access the information. So as an IP expert, maybe Mutitamba Solide, who in Malawi is responsible for providing this information? Who is responsible for protecting our copyright as musicians? And as an IP expert, do you really think that these people who are responsible have been doing everything they can to make sure that musicians benefit from their copyright?
Okay, so let me just say, when it comes to accessing of your copyrighted work, I think people have this conception of legal material that, oh no, I can't understand the English, or it's complicated, I won't be able to understand it. But we have gotten to a point in the legal discourse that we try to make our acts and legislature as user-friendly as possible. We try to use as simplistic of language as possible, so that any regular person can understand. So the government actually is supposed to make these things accessible, and which they do. Actually, it's just a simple Google search away. If you search Copyright Act Malawi, you will be able to access the Copyright Act. It's free. You can download the PDF and you can go through it. Don't be afraid that the language is going to be complicated. It's very simple language. You will be able, anybody as long as you understand English, you will be able to go through it and be able to understand all the materials that are contained in it. So it's not complicated or it's not difficult to find. Actually, and almost all acts in Malawi are available online. So you can just Google Trademark Act Malawi, you will find it. Criminal procedure code, you will find it. Civil procedure, you will find anything that you're looking for is made available for free online.
Wonderful. Mwamvatu guys, ma act on Malawi, including the Copyright Act, which outlines your rights and I guess your responsibilities, yeah? With copyright and your artistic works, also zilipo online. But guys, keep on texting. If you have any questions for Madalo, if you have any legal questions, keep on texting. And we are so glad to finally have Lightwell K. Benjamin from Kosoma joining us. Lightwell, thank you so much for finally coming in.
Thank you very much, Nyokase. Sorry that I joined later because of some technical hitches with my internet and connection with the links. But I'm glad that now I'm here. And Madalo, thank you very much for setting the pace. Although I've missed your presentation, but I think you have given the audience the right stuff.
Yeah, she did, and then some. You don't know.
I know. Okay.
All right, Lightwell. So now that you're here, actually, you're right. Madalo analambula bwalo kuti fotokozera kuti copyright ndijani komanso anatiuza kuti ngati tikufuna tidziwa zambiri za structures amene ayikidwa in place mu dziko la Malawi on copyright, we should read the Copyright Act. Komano, we are blessed that we've actually got someone from the Copyright Society of Malawi. I'm sure most of our viewers are aware that the Copyright Society of Malawi, or Kosoma, is one of the biggest bodies that safeguards musicians' copyright. Komanso amayanganira antu oyimba ndi antu alusosiyana to make sure kuti we are benefiting pa zimene tikutani zimene tikupanga create. So Lightwell, please titambasuleni. Kosoma imapanga chani ndipo muli ndi ma services otani for antu oyimba.
Chabwino, thank you very much for that wonderful question. Kosoma is the parastatal, which is created under Section 4 of the Copyright Act of 2016. Basically, it dates back to, its establishment dates back to 1992 after the enactment of the Copyright Act of 1989. Now, its functions are covered under Section 5 of which stipulates the society shall be responsible for the implementation of the Act. Its powers are under Section 6. We are also under the Ministry responsible for copyright, currently the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Wildlife. We are also governed by a board of directors, which comprises of 9 members. That is under, which is elected by the General Assembly. Our mandate is under Section 5 of the Act, that is to protect, to promote and protect interests of authors. We also advise the government on matters of copyright, and we perform dual functions. One is to administer the law, that is the copyright law, and we are also a collective management organization. We collectively manage the lives of authors and other stakeholders in the copyright framework. And these rights include management of rights that are stipulated under Section 29. Section 29 stipulates the exclusive rights that are accorded to the copyright holders. So we also, under administration and enforcement of the law, we advise the government, like I said, and we are a member to the Benin Union, which is a part of the Universal Copyright Convention, the TRIPS Agreement, and the Marrakesh Treaty, and all those things, those international treaties. We operate within the international framework also, and our law has domesticated some of the international laws which are available out there. So we also create awareness on copyright matters, more especially to creators, policy makers, law enforcement agents like the police, custom, and the judiciary. We also work with the academic institutions, journalists, and the general public. On the enforcement of the law, we collaborate with the law enforcers like the police, as I rightly said, the customs, the judiciary, because our nature, the nature of our work is legal. So it's kind of part of enforcement and also some kind of trying to promote the legal exploitation of the copyright itself. On the management of rights, COSOMA's objective as stipulated under Section 5, we collect and distribute royalties. We maintain registers of authors and their works. We also publicize the rights of owners and give evidence of the ownership of these where there is a dispute or an infringement. We also cooperate with the associations in Malawi. We work with the different associations like the Musicians Union of Malawi, the Book Publishers Association of Malawi, Visual Arts Association of Malawi, and all those others.
All right, well, thank you so much. Maybe just take us through. Let's just give a practical example. For example, we've got Eric Palian in studio, and one of Eric's most famous songs is Chitukutuku. So, for example, if Eric put out Chitukutuku in 2021, walk us through the process. What's the copyright process like for the song Chitukutuku?
Okay. Basically, copyright protection is automatic. Okay. Once that song has been created, it's automatically protected under copyright. However, for administrative purposes, that's where now the collective bodies like COSOMA come in, because COSOMA is in between the creator and the users. Now here is then a creator who has composed the song. Now there is a user outside there. This creator has got all the rights to exercise copyright in the creation. However, for practical purposes, it might not be possible to monitor all those exploitation that goes into the creation itself. So the COSOMA guys, they come in to exercise those rights on behalf of that creator, an intermediary between the user and the copyright owner. Now, once this creator has created the work, he is requested to voluntarily come and register with us, because automatically it is accorded protection. However, for the reason that I've given, these guys are supposed to register with us. Now, the registration process, it's a process that will at least help these creators to earn the secondary income that is gotten from the exploitation of the rights. There is the song, for example, the song that you have indicated, it has got two aspects: the commercial aspect and the legal aspect, which the copyright comes in. Now, our interest is mainly on the legal aspect, the exploitation of the rights in the creation. So these guys are asked to come and register with us. When they come to our office, they're asked to fill what the first form that they are supposed to sign is what we call a deed of assignment. That is the form which assigns COSOMA exercise the rights on behalf of the creator. Now, the assignment is done. These people are asked to declare ownership in the creation. Now, from the copyright perspective, there are parties that are recognized to benefit from the copyright work. We have got the author who has been involved in the authorship of the song. We have the composer who has taken the part of composition. There is an arranger who has helped this guy to polish this song to reach an extent that is palatable or is tangible. And also,
Yeah.
there is also a person who is normally the publisher, the one who has given the financial muscle to make sure this creation is produced. So under copyright, these four are the ones that are recognized. So once the declaration has been made and we have been given the mandate to go out and license, from the licensees, we collect the royalties. And those royalties are distributed to the ones whose works have been exploited. So I have to make it clear here that being a member of COSOMA does not warrant that member to get royalties, because a royalty is a usage-based payment, okay? It means that only those works which have been exploited and a payment to the same has been made are the ones that are going to be participating in that particular distribution of that royalty.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Like, well, mwafotokoza ndithu kuti COSOMA imapanga zinthu zambiri, and the process is a lot. It's not just mupite nyimbo ndapanga create nyimbo ndikapange claim drama. No, mwapanga outline ndithu kuti the Copyright Society of Malawi has a lot of intricate processes, and ndizofunika kuti tikwenera tizinvesese ndithu. So let's go to Eric. Eric, you've been in the game for a while. I'm sure you know a little bit about how COSOMA functions. Tell us now that from your experience, first of all, please explain with us, are you registered with COSOMA? And if you are, what has your experience been?
I'm actually South African. I'm a SAMRO member.
SAMRO?
Yeah, so according to my legal advice, you can't actually be a member of two copyright societies, because one has to collect, one has to pay, one has to pay, one has to collect. And I mean, Huma Sega had the same situation. He was South African, but his publishers or his publishing taken care of was actually done in the States. So there's actually no, in my view, and I've checked, I'm there for, I've got a publisher, private publishers, which is Universal. So Universal looks around wherever Eric Balian's music is all over the world, collects it privately, alerts SAMRO, and SAMRO pays me. And I think that's where the problem is that I'm a Malawian whose music is here. So SAMRO needs to contact, or has been contacted, or they kind of look at this area as Malawi as an uncollectible area.
Uncollectible?
Yeah, because Like a Dube is not collecting royalties from here. Brenda Fass has been playing music in Malawi, nothing happens. So basically, if you get signed in a, and I see a lot of youngsters that want to be on Trace, it's a problem because your money won't be coming here in that direct sense, because I mean, maybe he can tell us, because there's no marriage, that beautiful marriage between Copyright Society of Malawi and SAMRO. So that also affects a lot of music that, like for instance, Tigrane has got a lot of music that has played in South African radios, and the money most probably be sitting somewhere with copyright SAMRO, and then who do they transfer it to this side? So in general, and this maybe people once said, but a lot of record companies are scared to release their music into areas like Malawi, because it's given fact that you might not get anything out of this area.
All right. Yeah. No, Eric, thank you so much. You've opened our eyes. So, Lightwell, please fact check for us. Is it correct that if you're registered with one copyright organization, you cannot register with another? Komanso COSOMA does not collect in South Africa? Sorry, could you please unmute your mic? We can't hear you.
I thought, okay, I was yeah, I was muted that side, so I hope you are hearing me now.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Normally, what actually happens is we have reciprocal agreements with societies that do this a work of similar nature in their respective countries. Now with SAMRO, we have that reciprocal agreement, and it has been a beautiful arrangement, because SAMRO remits royalties to Kosoma, and Kosoma also remits royalties belonging to South African nationals. So I don't know whether there was an effort to ask from Samlo or to inquire from Kosoma whether there was any collection for, let's say, Eric Pariani. But what I know is that we have such agreements with sister societies in different countries. As of now, we are in those agreements with 27 societies, Samoa inclusive. So it's possible to be a member of two societies, but there are arrangements, the administrative arrangements that have to be put into place. And also you might be an artist who, anyway, you can assign different rights in different territories because copyright is territorial in nature. So an artist has got the choice to say, I own mechanical rights in a song. Which society in the world administers my rights? Which society can administer my rights effectively? And which markets are also viable for my product? So the artist has that liberty to search. If you feel Samlo has got a market for your music and it can collect for you effectively, you can even choose to join Samlo and assign those particular rights to Samlo. Equally, if in the Malawian market you see that your song has got a big market and Samlo through the reciprocal agreements cannot manage your rights effectively, the artist has that liberty also to join Kosoma and specify which rights it should administer for that particular artist. So there is that plenty of choices. It's just a matter of knowing which cards should an artist play to make sure he maximizes from the exploration of his or her copyright from wherever possible around the world.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Before we invite Zwei to weigh in, Madalo, just a little quick, because we are fact check and we fact check each other. Madalo, help us fact check Lightwell here. From your perspective as an IP lawyer, what is the relationship between other intellectual property organizations and Kosoma? Madalo.
Right. Yes, as Lightwell rightly put it, we are a member of different international agreements and such as the Berne Convention, the TRIPS, the Marrakesh. So basically, copyright laws tend to be very, very similar in different jurisdictions because there is actually no jurisdiction that I know of that requires you to, like, for example, register your copyright or do any of those things. So copyright laws tend to be very similar in different jurisdictions. But also, as Lightwell correctly put it, is that copyright is territorial in nature, which means that having copyright in Malawi does not necessarily mean that those are going to be the same rights in, let's say, South Africa. So you do have to be very proactive. If you feel like your music is being played in South Africa or something like that, you feel like maybe your music is most commonly exploited in South Africa, then you do have the right to actually approach. If you are a member for Kosoma, you can actually approach them and tell them that this is what I am facing and this is where I feel like my music is most likely being exploited. And as you like to put it, since they have agreements with the Copyright Society of South Africa, they can actually contact them and say that, okay, our musician, this artist wants to collect royalties in this territory because that's where his music is most likely being paid. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Madalo, like Benjamin. At the end of the day, I think when we're coming back, when Kayesa Creative Center comes back for the second webinar, we are going to answer the question, where are Eric Baliani's royalties? Where are Tay Green's royalties? Where are Lawi's royalties? Where are Faith Musa's royalties? Where are Patience Namadingo's royalties? We need to find out. But before we find out, let's hear from Zwei Bala. Now, Zwei, you have studied or you have observed what the copyright trend is in Malawi. Talk to us, sorry, not in Malawi, but in Southern Africa as a whole, and you have specialized in Southern African, South African copyright rather. So please talk to us. What have been your observations on how musicians in Southern Africa enjoy their copyright?
Thank you for the opportunity. I think, yeah, I'm listening to everyone. Thinking of myself as a young musician starting off and listening to everyone on that perspective, I think I would be quite lost. I remember a time when it was like just this talk of copyright was like, what the hell are they talking about? So if you'll allow me, I'd just like to simplify things a bit. Maybe I don't need to, but I just feel it may just be important. I think for every musician or person that deals with music, especially on the creative side of music, it's important first and foremost to think to yourself and determine what exactly are you doing. You are not just performing or just making music. You are now in the business of music. What I do, not everyone that's on that they're mentioning here, your Tagrins, your Erics, and so on, they are not the only people in creating that product that we eventually hear as consumers. It starts with writing a song, because you can't just sing without something that's being written. And sometimes there are people who are great composers or songwriters, but they all think maybe they need to be in front of a CD. But there are many people, in fact, most of in the top 20, 50 earners, say, of Samro, those people are not even like singers or musicians. They create music, they write music, but they know what business they are in, and they place their creations on platforms that are going to bring them the most. For instance, I know some of the highest earners create music for news logos. News logos, say SABC or whatever your local television broadcaster there is. News, there's a bulletin in every hour, and there's maybe whatever, but it's like it's probably the most played music, on radio. If Happy Birthday, the song, was still under copyright, yes, it probably would be making the most money because of many people that are having birthdays every day. But as Madalo said, that after 50 years after your death, for 50 years after your death, your beneficiaries, rather, because it may not even necessarily be your family, but your beneficiaries still earn money. But after that, it goes back to copyright control. So basically, like guys that are writing news logos, those are just examples. Soapies, stuff that's playing every day, and another good place is commercials, especially during the campaign period. So that's just the composition side, which is just one set of rights. Okay.
Yeah.
That's just compositions. And then, like, for instance, even some of the greatest musicians, some of the greatest artists, rather most successful artists, because being great at art is relative. Some of the highest earners have got, they are songwriters. You can imagine how much money Babyface made off Boys to Men with End of the Road. You can imagine how much Dolly Parton made of Whitney Houston with End of the Road. I mean, with and We'll Always Love You. Yeah. So that's just composition. And then when, say, a commercial wants to use, say, a TKZ song, for argument's sake, okay, they love that song. Now, it's important that they have that particular song, that particular soundtrack, that song that's recognizable by its sound, not just the composition itself. Otherwise they could just take the sheet music and replay the music, which, if they do a bit of the work, then it saves them from having to pay out a bit of the money. So now you have to talk to the publishers who are in charge of just the composition side of things, and then you have to talk to the sound recording rights holders, because that's another set of rights, whoever is invested in that sound. So if you if you create your own music, you record it in your own studio, and then you give it over to a record company, say to release. Now you have a right to the master of that. I know many people have given away these rights because they don't know what the rights are, you know. So it's important to know what it is that you are doing, what business you are doing. So if you are composing the music and you are producing it and producing, yes, I'm using it widely because it should encompass everything that is production, everything that you've created by yourself, and you just hand over the master to a record company or to whoever is going to, because a record company in this particular instance is the user, you know, of that. So whatever you hand over, whatever part you've done, you need to know what to have rights to in terms of what I have delivered. So I don't think I can cover everything in this time, but it's important to know what business you're in. So when one of the artists there in the studio are busy saying, yeah, you know, artists don't have access, you know, to this kind of, they do have access to this kind of information. You know, now there's internet, but at least to know what kind of information you need access to, you need to know what kind of information I need for me to know what it is that I'm doing. And I'm trying to run through these things very quickly, but it's also important to know: are you really? Should you really be? Every musician that writes music, should they all have albums? No, is it when we talk about music industry? I was just talking about recording albums and being on Channel O and all that. Where's this? And really, I know that white people, for instance, they know exactly where the money is. So they will compose music which is on National Geographic or is used as library music. So their publishers specialize not only in getting artists to perform these things, but some of them are just instruments, instrumentals which can go into song libraries that can be utilized for all different things. Guys, there's music all over the place. When you are in a lift, there's music. When you're watching anything, there's music. Whatever. These days, with content, there normally is a soundtrack. And you need to know wherever you hear a piece of music, there is money right there. Because yes, a lot of young people, young artists or young musicians may come in and say, me, I'm not really about the money for me. It's about, I love music, which is fine, which is fine. But I think it's a challenge when there is money made from your creation, but it's going to somebody else. There is a problem when you find out that it actually is a lot of money and it's going to people that have money anyway. One such massive example is The Lion Sleeps Tonight. Which I think Disney had rights to, but us, we even thinking, no, it's just it's a traditional song. No. It was composed. So if the challenge is that we don't have, like, for instance, here we're talking about Samros. Samros represent members, and members consist of either creators, the actual authors or composers of the pieces, but there's also publishers, okay, which Eric Paliani alluded to. Now, I'm not saying here that find a publisher in Sony or Universal or any of those guys, okay? You can even be the publisher of your music.
Yeah.
Okay? Because that already saves you quite a bit. Because these guys they have a right to equity a lot of the time. And if you don't know much, that's the first thing that they're going to present to you before they say to you what options you actually have. So the more you know about what you are doing, the better. You know what I'm saying? Because so basically that's really what in a nutshell, that there's a lot that we need to know in self-empowerment before we go to these guys. And I really just want to touch just on a few things that have been mentioned already. Lightwell, for instance, represents, I think, the equivalent to Samro in Malawi, right?
Yes.
Is that correct?
It represents Kosoma, so ours is called Kosoma.
Yes, exactly. So and these guys, Maralo mentioned that you may not have necessarily registered your song or notified the collecting company of your music, but it sits there, and that normally is in copyright control. There is hundreds of millions of unclaimed music, But you must remember
Yeah,
that this is money that can be used for cash flow or whatever, advancing other businesses or the running of these organizations. So, and also there are beneficiaries that may be losing out on these things, on having these kind of funds. You know what I'm saying? Or there's legacies. Your
yeah,
great grandfather used to compose music, but you don't know how to make the most out of that. You just always talk about he used to compose music. What happened to those compositions? You know.
yeah.
So I know that music as a medium is not sometimes like, are you still working at that place that sells cars? No, I left that. I'm in music now. Like music is not something to be taken seriously. Normally musicians are not taken
Yeah,
seriously because they don't take themselves seriously.
yeah,
So to really
yeah.
cut to the chase again, we've been discussing these kind of things with some people based in Malawi about these kind of challenges, and now people may be asking, okay, but what do we do?
Yeah.
Personally have taken the initiative of getting together with musicians around the continent, and Malawi in specific to be one of the places that we're starting at, and working with a few guys to set up an office called Oneness, which is there to really advance the interests of local musicians and composers. In fact, anyone in the creative arts eventually, yes, we'll start with music because that's what we're directly involved with, but in time be able to support anyone in the arts field, be it photographers or fashion designers and whatever has got to do with artistry, because all those things also have rights. You know what I'm saying? People can have rights
Absolutely.
to images that are used in a magazine or whatever. So it's important that ultimately that all creators know these rights. And guys, we are Africans, we are creators, and we have a lot of content that we could be benefiting from
Absolutely.
instead of looking overseas, because that's not going to give us our wealth. Our wealth is amongst us. That is really just a sum up of what I'd like to share.
No, Zwei, thank you so much. Mwachad is Mzambili, and it's important to know your business. Oimba fendifantwa business, nditu we are entrepreneurs, we are business people. Know your business, know the kind of information that you want to know actually. What is there for me and what's available for me? And Zwei, we are so excited actually that you've mentioned this really amazing thing that's starting up in Malawi called Oneness, yes? Yeah,
Yeah.
so Oneness is going to be there. Yeah, so Oneness is going to be there to help and assist creatives to understand their copyright, on how best they can benefit from the work that they put out. And it's very important, especially for young female musicians. We do a lot of hooks, we do a lot of choruses, we do a lot of taglines for our friends, and we're doing it for free. You know, we do it as a favor, but we really don't know how many times those songs are being played and how much content is being put out. Home Grand African, I want my royalties. All right, guys, it's time for question time. We are so excited, and thank you. You guys have been in the chat constantly. So I'm going to hand it over to Lulu. Lulu, please hit us up. What are the people on Facebook and on Zoom trying to know? Oh, right. I'm just getting word. So sorry, my bad, you guys. I'm just getting word that it's not Lulu, it's Brigida. Bri, where you at? Please drop us with those questions. Is Bri there?
I think I saw her.
Hello.
Ah, fabulous. Hey, Bri.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the question and answer. The first question is to Madalo, and it says, what about grassroots people that do not have internet and are technologically illiterate? How do they go about accessing information? I think the question is coming from the fact that Madalo mentioned everything is available online. So the question is, what about grassroots people that do not have internet and are technologically illiterate? How do they go about accessing information?
Okay. With regards to technologically illiterate and grassroots people, the government is making an effort to sensitize people and to make them more aware of their rights. For example, as I said, that they've put the acts freely accessible online and digitally, but there are obstacles in how to disseminate this information, especially if you're dealing with a population that does not necessarily have access to the internet or is in fact illiterate. As I'm sure Lightwell will concur with me, there are sensitization efforts that are going on to make sure that people are more aware. There might be community outreach projects and other means of informing people of their rights. But it is, in fact, difficult where people might not necessarily even understand what a copyright is. So there is a need for more community sensitization, but I'm sure there are actually efforts that are being made to make people aware of their rights. I'm sure Lightwell can perhaps shed more light on some of these outreach projects.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Madalo. Bree, do we have one more question?
Yes, I think these ones are directed to Lightwell, is it? They have something to do with Kosoma. On the chart from Henriette B. Godbeck, it says, are Kosoma collecting the master rights royalties as well, or only the composer rights? I hope that was clear.
Take it again, please.
Yeah. Hello.
Highlight while we can hear you.
Okay. Before I answer that question, I raised the hand specifically to say something on what Zwei is saying on. I don't know if I'm allowed to explain a little bit on that one. He mentioned about unclaimed loyalties. Should I go ahead explaining on that one?
Yes, actually, it's a very good point. We want to know, when we don't come to collect our royalties, what does Kosoma do with the money?
Okay.
Please go for it.
Like what I said, that the registration is voluntary. And also the act allows us to even collect for non-members. So what normally happens is that once we come across a non-member's work which has participated in a distribution, we make an effort to find information that could be used to finalize that distribution. That money is kept until we identify the owner for 3 years. So if we know the member has got a song that has participated in a distribution but is not declared with us, we inform that member. If it's a member of another society, we draw what we call an inquiry list. We send that list to different societies whose songs we think have participated in the distribution. Now, once those sister societies have identified the works of their members, they inform us and we remit those royalties for them to further distribute according to the declarations which the members have made to their respective societies. So that money is held with Kosoma for 3 years. If we don't find the rightful owners, that money is plowed back into the next distribution. So Kosoma is a society that is also governed by international rules. We are members of international professionals like CISAC. So CISAC is a body that also look into the corporate governance issues relating to the collective management business. So we make sure we professionally undertake our duties so that we serve our members effectively. So there is that misconception that bodies like Kosoma, they just use the monies which they don't know the owners. We are principled organizations, and also we also go by what we call the equal treatment principle, which says that we should even treat non-members the very same way that we treat our members. So it's within that corporate governance structure that we make sure that we serve our members and non-members within the corporate governance requirements. That's what I wanted to.
Yeah, go for it. All right. Sorry, Labo, before we cut you, one of our panelists, KBG, has got a really good question.
I've got questions.
Let's start with one. Let's
I've
start with
got a
one.
lot of questions.
Husan.
But first of all, I know like well from Kosoma because I go there to inspire certain things as an artist. But there's certain things that I still also don't understand, and I know
There is an echo. Yeah. Okay.
there's an echo. Hello? How about now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Is it okay now?
All right. Happy days.
All right, cool. So anyway, I was saying that for a lot of people might not really understand what it means when it comes to like the terminologies that we're using. For example, I'll go to this question that I had. I don't 2 months ago, we had this situation. It was an uproar on social media when Kosoma released Blank Levy. You know? Up to now, there are certain people that don't understand what that means. You know? I know that Blank Levy is to do with music that is not registered, but is supposedly the music that is out there online, people that are burning CDs, pirated music, and all of that. So I wanted to understand. Is that part of copyright? What's the difference between blank levy and royalties? Can an artist get royalties and also blank levy? Or you have to be also registered to get blank levy and royalties? So where do we stand when it comes to that? Because I understand Madalo said that you don't have to register to go claim your song for copyright. And all of you guys are in agreement that if I come to Kosoma and say my song has been popping on social media and I don't have anything to show for, you can backdate. I know Kosoma can backdate. They can search for the song and they can accumulate all the money and they can give you. So I need to understand, how does that work? Do you have to register or anyone can go and do that?
Okay, Mr. KBG of Nyali Music.
Yes, sir.
All right. That's a very interesting question. There is a difference between the royalty and the blank media. A blank media levy is the remuneration. Okay. With the coming in of these technological advancements in the digital environment, the copyright laws are very accommodative. They also look into different exploitation channels and how best the owners of the rights can be compensated. So the media levy is a compensation scheme for the loss of revenue due to private copying. Or I understand Madalo pointed out that you can have you can copy music into your computer for private purposes without paying a royalty. So the coming in of different gadgets that are capable of reproducing copyright works in the digital environment or digitally, such as the computers, the phones, and any other media that is capable of reproducing or storing copyright protected material. The copyright laws, they try to accommodate such losses by providing for a blank media levy. Now, the current Copyright Act of 2016 has provided for administration of such a levy. It's a levy that is collected at the entry point or when such gadgets are imported into a country, because there is an assumption that those gadgets, they will facilitate illegal reproduction, which cannot be traced by the rightful ways of tracking who has copied or who has utilized or exploited the right to get a royalty. Now, only those works which are deemed to be suffering due to the illegal exploitation or the private reproduction, they are the ones that are entitled to be remunerated from the blank media. Now, a member or a work that has suffered maybe economic gains due to the private copy is also can also benefit from the blank media and also from the royalty. Because what we are saying is the blank media, we are talking about compensation. The royalty, we are talking about usage payment. So these are two different things. Royalty is a usage-based payment. You have a copyright work which has been exploited by someone you know, and the payment you calculate in advance that from this exploitation, I'm expecting to get this much. That's a royalty. But the compensation, you don't know how the extent of the harm that is going to be inflicted on your corporate work, and you only get compensated. So now, do you get the difference?
Yes, I get it, but how do you measure which artist gets this amount of money and which artist gets this less amount of money? One. And the other thing is also, I think that you introduced, for us, for me, I think what complicates matters is there are three things that are happening that most of the artists don't understand. There's digital tracking that is also happening at Kosoma at your offices. So when I come to register for digital tracking, what is that doing? Is that tracking my songs on social media, on my website, or is that linked with the blank levy?
Okay.
So if I am to come and say, but I have got a website, and my website is telling me that I've got 50,000 downloads. So who is accessing this music? Is it just people who are outside of Malawi, or they're in Malawi? And if that's the case, am I collecting the money as blank levy, digital tracking, or royalties?
All right, Laibo, before you answer that question, and I know that it's and yet another interesting question from the man himself, but we have to wrap up. So what we're going to do is, because ajinyamata feso na feso ambili tufuna tidziwe zoti nkhani ya digital ikuenda bwanje tisinanga most of us access things on Facebook, tikamaimba pamapola tuni timamva nyimbo yathu ikupangidwa play. So I think what we're going to do as fact checker is we'll talk more about digital tracking on our social media pages. Guys, our Creative Center will share as well. Kuti tikaza aitanaso Ake Benjamin for the second webinar, tizakaita kupitiriza nditu conversation. So I'm going to let you rest a little bit because we need to wrap up, because it's been such an interesting discussion and it's just been getting so much better towards the end. But guys, we have to go. But don't worry, because it's a 3-part webinar. And next time, kuti copyright ndichani. So pano, what do we benefit? Is it money? Is it compensation? Is it studio space? What are we talking about when we say royalties, when we say remuneration? How are artists getting paid? Niba process kuenda bwanje. Madalo anachula zama banning center, KBG ababa wachula za Facebook, social media, digital tracking. Zonsezo nditu tikatu kuona kuti tikama tadziwano kuti monga antoimba, we have a right. And we've got copyright, and we can make money off of our work. Now, what exactly is there to make money off of it? So I'm going to let you rest. But thank you so much to the amazing panel, Eric Bariani, KBG, Zoibala all the way from South Africa, Madalo Banda, all the way from your exam room. Thank you so much. And K. Benjamin, thank you so much for having us. But at the end of the day, but we need to understand what exactly is it. Guys, we know you've been sending so many questions. We'll try as much as possible to group them and to answer as many questions as possible. We couldn't have covered everything within an hour. But y'all, thank you so much for tuning. Before we sign out, I'm going to let Eric Bariani say one more thing, and then he'll say goodbye, and we'll sign out.
Okay, cool. I think what is very important is I'll go back to what I said, that music in Malawi was there before copyright came. We played music. And 95% of the musicians have never been to school. We always attribute music as Yeah, and also Punzila. We need to translate the Copyright Act into Chichewa. These discussions need to be discussed in our vernacular languages.
True.
Because 90% of the people that we're dealing with do not understand even what is copyright. They say, Kuba Kwabuino. That's copyright. So I love this, what is happening, but for me still it does not answer the fact that I played music in 1987 and 92 comes and copyright was supposed to change our life. Very few people are benefiting, and this is the fact. But tons and tons of musicians are writing songs they don't even understand this because we are speaking and because our bills are written in our colonial language. We need to go back to addressing this issue into the vernacular because a lot of our musicians do not understand English. So let's go back.
Magaine mukuziganizira mumakomo mwanu pamafoni anu muziziganizira kuti kodi copyright in Chichewa ndijani. Please share your thoughts actually. What is copyright in Chichewa Malawi? Tikukufusani tiyankheni tithandizeni. What is copyright in Chichewa? Let's fact check if you come across anything from the act, guys. Tiye nazo ni komanso kaisa Creative Center akumapanga posti ma graphic tosiyana siyana kupanga simplified definition ya copyright. Zinthu zikuti zikukhala bwanji ndithu. So keep on the fact checker page. Keep on the Kaisa Creative Center page and search. Amene tili ndi mafoni ama smartphone iwa. Chonde tiye ntiyangane ndithu. Tiyathandize azinzathu amene alibe access to zinthu za digital zindithu. Kuti tonse tikhale ndi nzeruzi. So to my fellow amazing panelists who have been with me physically, guys, let's say a goodbye. Goodbye. Lovely. And to our amazing panelists on Zoom, guys, please take a bow. You guys have been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us via Zoom. Please wave goodbye.
I'll be working on my local language for next time, okay?
Do that.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And we can start with the Tionana.
What is it called? Chichewa?
Yes,
what's the language
Chichewa.
called? Okay.
Chichewa.
Chichewa, okay. At least the greeting for now. See you next time.
No, but thank you so much. And Bree, you have done an amazing job with the questions. Girl, you always got it. From Fact Checker Malawi, live from MHub Studios, this is us signing off and saying bye.
Peace out.
See you next time.
Goodbye.